What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I don't know about you, man, but I get hyped by that music. Shout out to Christian for getting us in there. And we are back with another edition of a Dynasty mock draft. Now, we're going to do something a little different in this one, though. So, we're going to do a Dynasty mock draft. But what we did was I got 12 analysts together and fans and just people that I respect. And we included the 2023 class. So, we have a bunch of degenerate Dynasty, Devy, just all around dudes that are in this draft. I also drafted in this draft. And what we did is we included that draft class inside. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break down rounds 1 through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 9, 10 through 12, but I'm going to highlight where the college football 23 class went. We'll talk about overall and all that, but I thought it would be an interesting kind of experiment, see where are these guys getting value right now. So if you're in a Devy league, you can kind of see that value. If you're not a Devy league, you can kind of see the upcoming class and where people kind of have them there. And then where are they at in terms of like QB9 in the quarterback class? So where are they, right? So that's the kind of the goal there. Had to give a shout out to my guy Justin Fields, had a great game today. So let's go through rounds 1 through 3 and kind of break it down. So here's our rounds 1 through 3. So as you can see, and again, like I always say, you can stop it. You can see kind of where everything's at in terms of the screen and who went where. But kind of the first round, kind of similar. So you had Allen, Herbert, Mahomes, Taylor, Burrow, Jackson, kind of there. Chase, Murray, Jefferson there. Now, we use placeholders as kickers for these Devy guys, so that's why you see the kickers on there, but I've made it easier for you there. So let's talk about who went first. Bryce Young. This shocked me. Quarterback 9 out of the gate. So when you're thinking about where he's getting valued right now, so here are the quarterbacks on Keep Trade Cut, which again is it's not perfect, but it good does show you. Here's the quarterbacks he's going around. So Tua is QB8, Trevor Lawrence is QB9, Deshaun Watson is QB10, Dax QB11, and Justin Fields QB12. Right now, currently, Bryce Young got drafted at QB9. So based on the kind of the market and everything out there, it's around Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott value already before even playing in a snap. And then CJ Stroud right there is a QB 11, right? So when we're thinking of like just in terms of value and where they have, that is how high they went. And thinking about who they went around, I mean that's tremendous value. So if you have these guys in Devy or in C2C or whatever you play in terms of that format, you can see how highly people are valuing these guys. And I think that's an interesting kind of area. And I like, I like their drafts, Harbaugh's draft here. So you had Hall, Young, Cook. So you can kind of see where he's going with that. Cook's an interesting one, but I guess just value wise, and we'll see the final team builds at the end. But I do like kind of how he went in terms of where he goes. Now I do want to talk about Bijan Robinson. So Bijan right now went a running back 4 on this board. So we had Taylor, we had Hall, we had Walker, and then Bijan Robinson. And Hall is still going in the first. Hey, I know his knee injury is not as bad. That is interesting to me where his value is. His value has not dipped, but then Bijan Robinson already is running back 4 in Dynasty, just like that. Just 204. Boom, he's there. Barkley's going next. McCaffrey's going next. Swift, Williams, and all those guys. But already, Bijan is a top 5 Dynasty asset, which doesn't seem that crazy. Now, Travis Etienne went a little later than I thought he probably would. According to Keep Trade Cut, Travis Etienne is at running back 4. John Taylor is at running back 5. I mean, the value here is insane in terms of where we have a Dynasty, just in general, like just talking about it. But I thought it was interesting seeing Bijan go with that 204 running back 4. Now, overall, though, if you're just looking at the board, some things that kind of stand out to you. Like I like Kyler Murray, Pitts, Lance. I love that build. As long as Lance comes back. For me personally, I went Allen, McCaffrey, Waddle, so I'm going win now on this team. I just saw the value on the board. I said, you know what? This is how I'm going to kind of attack it. Now, let's look at rounds 4 through 6. So we're going to see 8 selections of the 23 class in this round. So this is where they're really, really getting valued. And even in startup drafts like you'll do next year and those type of things, you're going to see the same thing in terms of where people are getting valued, and especially the 23 class. So this was tied in premium. So I do want to point that out too. I should have. It's 12-team super flex tied in premium kind of mock draft here. So when we're looking at this one, and we're going to go see where are people going here. So first selection right here was 404 with Jackson Smith and the Jigba. So he went as wide receiver 13. That's pretty high praise and pretty good value in terms of where he's going right now. Around those guys right now is like London, Debo, DK, like in terms of like the actual Keep Trade Cut Dynasty value. So Jackson Smith the Jigba is going as wide receiver 13, 404 overall. Thought it was interesting. I don't think it's a reach. I actually kind of like it, but just showing where his value is at and where he's going. So he's going kind of around that Amon-Ra, DK, London range. And that's pretty good. That's basically value what you see. Then we have Jahmyr Gibbs. He's going as running back 12 where he went at 406. So we see that kind of, hey, all right, running back 12. I think that's a good fit for Gibbs, especially with his pass catching and what he's been able to do, and especially with how volatile the running back position is. So one thing we're going to highlight is the running backs and where they go, especially with the 22 class, how deep they are. Next one is Michael Mayer, tight end from Notre Dame, 502. Now, I do want to point this out. He went as tight end 4 already at 502 in a tight end premium, especially with what we're seeing here with the tight end position. That's pretty incredible considering, right? So I went Kelsey early. You can see it up there. And then as we kind of bounce through it, I mean, it's really Andrews, Pitts, Kelsey, and then Michael Mayer went tight end 4. And I think, that just shows you what the position is, right? Kittle goes next. But a guy like Mayer is going to come in and maybe be a top 5 dynasty asset already. Think of Freiermuth, maybe a little athletic, a little bit more athletic. Greg Dulcich is already right there. Isaiah Likely, these guys are already right there. So Mayer comes in at that mark. Now, after that, so if you're looking at after that, Sean Tucker comes next. He's at running back 16. So Tucker went before Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnson. I think in my mind, I think it's just because of the value of the running back spots, the wide receiver spots, but then like the need for running backs. So running back 16 for Sean Tucker is an interesting. So he was running back 3 off the board. On the flip side, you have Jordan Addison, wide receiver 604, wide receiver 24. Quentin Johnston, who many have as their wide receiver 1. I think maybe he's a value here at wide receiver 26 at 606. Like just in terms of where he went, I like this pick here, especially just based on value here. So those are kind of the areas there. Now, next guy's here. The steal of the draft to me was Zach Evans at running back 18. Zach Evans has done a phenomenal job at Ole Miss. Now, he hasn't had that Quinshon Judkins, if you don't know who that is, he's a true freshman that's kind of taken over a lot of the workload there. But Zach Evans has still been very, very good. He had 8 attempts, 75 yards last game against Texas A&M. He's looked good. He's had 108 attempts, 680 yards, and 7 touchdowns. He's been a little banged up, and he hasn't had the usage that you want to see, but he's still going to be a top 3 guy in this draft. I think just based on running style and running value, he's going to be there. If you can get him at running back 18, I'd much rather have probably him than Tucker where he went. And shoot, I'd take a wide receiver if I'm going to go young like JSN or someone like that, and then grab him later rather than go reach on Gibbs. I think Zach Evans is a very, very solid back. I think when we start talking about him. Now, I do want to point out one value that I'm seeing shoot up more is Blake Corum, man. Blake Corum has looked absolutely phenomenal. I think he's the 3rd in the Heisman race right now, according to the Vegas odds. He's looked really good, but this is the highest I've seen him go in terms of drafts, everything there, and probably warranted. You know what? He has 1,100 yards already, almost 1,200, 16 touchdowns. He's looked really good for Michigan. He's the reason why they're undefeated still. 5'8", 210's got the size. You hope that he's over 200, but just the value, right? So when you're looking at value and perceived value and everything that's there, that is where they are going in this draft class. Now, let's look at round 7 through 9. So we're looking, kind of going through. We're going to see a lot of players in this. We're going to see 9 players of 23 class valued here. So let's start with the early ones. Now, Kayshon Boutte has dropped. Kayshon Boutte would have been a top 4 round pick probably in that range, like with JSN. He has dropped all the way to wide receiver 30 in this draft. And you know what? I can't dock it. He's not hurt. I mean, he's not healthy, right? Like, excuse me, he is healthy. He's not hurt, and he's just not producing, and we haven't seen that. And it's not like LSU is tanked. They just beat Alabama. Against Alabama, he had 7 catches and 51 yards. His best game of the year probably was against Florida. He had 6 catches, 115 yards, but he didn't really he hasn't really shown that athleticism, that stuff that we've seen since his injury. Now, we don't know what that injury was last year, so that could be part of this. Like, we don't know necessarily what he's coming back from. But just looking at it at a face value, his value has dipped more. You've lost a lot of value in him if you draft him in Devy, so you got to hope that he has a good combine and he pops back up. But right now, that's a pretty good value. Zach Charbonnet, another one. UCLA running back, didn't play this last weekend. 801 running back 25. Don't hate it. Don't love it. Kind of there. If you're going 0 running back, you're going to try to get someone like him. I think he could fit in. Really just going to come out of draft capital. My next one, man, it was a shocker. Darnell Washington, tight end, 802, tight end 8. Our guy Christian's talking about Darnell, saying, hey, he's going to get there. Darnell found himself in the top 50 Brugler's list for the athletic. People are talking about him being there. I struggle with Darnell because I don't think he can catch very well, but he's got the intangibles. And when you're looking at intangibles, I know the NFL is going to love him. He's going to test out of the roof. on the Kim Bomb testing athletic measure. And, he's been okay this season, 19 catches, 332 yards. So we have seen him actually kind of produce a little bit. But again, he hasn't really shown out. And he didn't play against Tennessee. We didn't see him there. So again, tight end 8, that's tough for me. I don't necessarily know if I would go that route with him, especially where he went. That's a little early for me, especially with the other guys still on the board, like Fryermuth, those type of guys. Waller maybe comes back, Njoku. I don't know if I would have reached Darnell, but I understand he has the intangible, 6'7", 270, big kid, the way he runs. Like, I see it, but I don't necessarily I think that was a little too expensive for me. Now, we move on to the next kind of 3 guys, and they went back to back, basically. So Anthony Richardson, quarterback, 19, 804. This is based on pure talent. Like, I think we've seen him. I don't know if he comes out, but I understand just looking at just the board. Like, when you look at quarterbacks, it drives up fast, guys. So if you look at the board, you're seeing it like Derek Carr's around this fight, Zach Wilson. What do we think about these guys late? Geno Smith, Russell's falling off really low, not in terms of this one, but just in terms of where he's at. Mac Jones, Malik Willis, like, okay, so I guess you take a swing here. We don't know for sure if he's coming out. If he is coming out, I don't necessarily hate it depending on the roster where he's at. Jalen Hyatt is the guy that we've been talking about. He's a wide receiver 34. He's kind of had up and down. Didn't have a great game against Georgia, but he's had a great season this year. And then Tank Bigsby continues to be a value in these things. 806, running back 26. I don't hate it for Tank. Tank was considered a top 5 guy in this class, and that's essentially where he's at right now, right? I don't know about Charbonnet being ahead of him in terms of value, but in terms of this draft, he went at running back 7. So determining, where is he at, right? If I can do the math there. Yeah, I did the math right. So running back 7, that's a value to me in terms of the draft. Now, next ones, and this is where my guy, I drafted Kendre Miller. I think Kendre is coming off the board faster than this. I think he's going to be a value early on in your drafts. But when you're looking at what Kendry's been able to do, I think when you just expect him to kind of be that next guy, I think he's there. I think he's going to be one of these guys that we talked about being a second round value. He is a very, very solid runner. And remember, he probably outproduced Zach Evans a couple times. He has 153 attempts already, 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's looked really, really good. He has 4 consecutive 100-yard games, including 158 yards and a touchdown against a must-win Texas Tech game. Another good value here, Josh Downs, receiver from North Carolina. Him and Drake May are absolutely tearing up college football right now. And the fact that I think I have him as my wide receiver, I would say 108, 109 value in terms of my big board right now that I'm doing for football guys. I definitely check that out if you're in Dynasty. If you get him here at the 903 wide receiver 39, I'm all aboard that. I think that's a good value here. He's at 63 catches, 693 yards, and 8 touchdowns this year. He was a little banged up. Now, next one, Will Levis, quarterback. Yeah, I'm not touching Will Levis. I give you credit. You touched him. He might get first-round draft capital because the NFL is stupid. I don't think so, though. I just don't see them get drafting this guy in the first round. All right, let's go to rounds 10 through 12, and then we'll get out of here. So last 3 kind of areas here. We got 8 more guys in this class. And this is also to show you guys, like, hey, we don't really know what this class is going to be, but it's already deep, right? So Israel Abanikanda, running back from Pittsburgh, some guys that we've been on really high at the Devy Royale last year. We told you he's a value in the mid-round value. I wrote about it for Fantasy Pros, and I was right in there. I wrote about it for football guys. Me and Christian talked about it on the podcast. He's looked really good at running back 32. I think that's a pretty good value. Cedric Tillman, we saw come back last week. He's been a little banged up, but hey, 1105, running back or wide receiver 48. I'll take that. And then Deuce Vaughn getting drafted. I love this. You got to hang out with the little guy, right? Like, Deuce Vaughn is out there. I don't think I would waste a pick on Deuce Vaughn. I don't know what to do with Deuce Vaughn. He is so small in terms of what he is on that field. Like, he is fast and he has that ability. And we're talking about a guy that can really, really step up here. He has 173 attempts, 175 yards, and 5 touchdowns, but he's 5'6", 176, guys. I'm out on that. Now, next one here, when you look into this, okay, Hendon Hooker, quarterback 1109, quarterback 24. Tucker Kraft, tight end 1201, tight end 16. Naheem Bell, tight end. This is where all the tight ends basically went. We just kind of threw them all in there. Tight end 17 as well. But again, you're looking for this. Hendon Hooker is one of these guys. He's an older prospect. What are we going to see with him? And then we have Chase Brown and Dalton Kincaid. So Chase Brown at the 1203, running back 38. Hey, you know what? He's had a very, very solid producing year. Dalton Kincaid, tight end, Utah. Again, solid producer, tight end 19. Don't hate that. That kind of reminds me of like when we're looking at Dolchich, some of these other guys that kind of popped off at the tight end position and what we see. So let's take a look at the final outlook, and then we'll get out of here just so you can look. So here are what the teams kind of finally look like. So if we're going to look at these teams and kind of go over them, I thought there was interesting roster builds in terms of everything. That obviously you looking at kickers and all that stuff right now. But if you're diving into it, like in just in terms of who got drafted where and how these look, like I really liked Blake Rake in 29's team there with Murray, Pitts, Lance, London, and it kind of worked the way down. Obviously, we're looking at the 508, what he was able to get there. I really like that pick. I like Collins' pick. C Decker 613 over there. You got to fix that name, Colin. Mahomes, Barkley, Andrews, Lawrence, Adams, Godwin. I like where he was kind of building there. And I like my team, obviously. I took a shot at Russ there. I always try to build in and out depending on where it's at. I don't mind taking Jacobs as my running back too, where he's at. And then shout out Matty Big Chest. Walker, Hurts, Olave, Metcalf, Cousins. A little early on Gabe Davis and Brian Robinson, but I do like that start. I think that's a good build and a solid build around there. Everybody did pretty well in terms of where the draft was. So that is kind of how the draft kind of worked out. You could pause it, take a look, see those player values, kind of go back. You could take a look and see, okay, where are those guys at? I do want to show you that one last time. So here are kind of the areas where you see these guys so that you can look in each round. So that was round 1 and 3 earlier. This is rounds 4 through 6, kind of where they're at. 7 through 9, what you're looking at here in the class, and then 10 through 12. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you guys tuning into the channel. I hope you had fun with this mock. We had a lot of fun doing it. 23 class. We're going to do a little bit of fun stuff like this. And we had a fun one, me and Christian. Next week, we're going to have a little bit of a fun mock for you guys. So appreciate it. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button, man. Let us know how we're doing. Appreciate all the subs you'll be getting. Please check out the Patreon. Do those things. Until next time, we'll see you later.